Carol here with BlueSkyAtHome.com with another project for you. These are obviously terracotta pots, and I'm going to show you a couple of different ways to decorate them. Not necessarily for planting things, you could, but maybe just for putting faux plants in, or putting spoons or utensils, or just whatever you might want to use them as a container for. These three pots in the front here, I found around the side of our house. They were empty, and I washed them, made sure there wasn't any dirt or grit on them. These two pots were in my out front by the curb in my neighbor's yard last week when it was bulk pickup day, and they were perfectly good. They may look similar, but one's just a tiny bit smaller, and that's okay. So I washed these also. I have my drop cloth ready to paint on, and a few brushes. So I'll be back. The first thing that I'm going to do is paint all of them white. I'm going to be using Rescue Restore paint from a Maker Studio, which is my favorite paint. So I'll be back after I've painted these pots. Bye. Hi, Carol here with BlueSkyAtHome.com. I'm back with my pots. And as you can see, I've already painted a few of them. These two smaller ones have 2 coats, which this will take 2 coats because terracotta is very porous. It's clay. So depending on the paint that you use and the coverage that you want, it could be 2, maybe even 3 coats. I think for what I'm going to do, 2 coats is fine. This terracotta pot, I've only done 1 coat, just so you could see the difference in what 1 coat and 2 coats look like. Now the paint that I'm using is one of my absolute favorite chalk paints. It's called Rescue Restore. It is by a Maker Studio. I am a maker with a Maker Studio, and this paint has unbelievable coverage. The other thing that I love about it is that it has no VOCs, it has no odor, none whatsoever. It is safe to use indoors. You can use it around kids. It washes up with just soap and water. You can really almost even just use water, and it cleans up beautifully. This is the large container. This is 16 ounces. And this is the small, what we call sample pots, and it's 2 ounces. And there's about, I want to say, 18 different colors that this chalk paint comes in. So I'm going to get started. I'm going to start with these 2 pots. This is a fairly fast drying paint, but as I said, clay is really porous, so it probably takes a little bit longer than if you were painting wood or metal or any other non-porous surface. So we'll get started with painting. Hi, Carol Lander with BlueSkyAtHome.com, and I'm back with our decorating terracotta pot project. As you can see, I've painted all 5 of these pots. I've given each of them 2 coats of Rescue Restore paint from a Maker Studio. And also, I went ahead and decorated a couple of pots. This one I used napkins with, and I'm going to show you how to do that. I'm using a couple of kind of pink floral napkins. These are ones that fortunately I already had on hand. I'll show you how to do that one. The next one is a little bit different. I took some scrapbook paper. You can see it was just left over from an earlier project. And I cut it into pieces like this. You don't have to cut it close because the white part won't show. And I did this pot. Again, I left places open. You could cover it completely, but I wanted to have this kind of look for this pot. Next, we're going to try something new. Fabric. Yes, you can decoupage fabric. I have a lot of fabric scraps in my fabric stash, and I found 3 pieces of blue, and they all coordinate together. I think this was from, oh, if you have ever quilted, you buy these what are called fat quarters, and so we're going to use that for this little pot. So we're going to do each of those. So as you know, we can't go to the store. We can't order things. Well, we can order things, but it takes forever for them to get here. So I normally use the Mod Podge in the gloss. This is my favorite one. Mod Podge comes in matte. It comes in all different kind of formulations and colors. I had some antique matte, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the antique matte to glue my pieces to my pots, and then I'll go over it with the gloss on top. So we're going to kind of use two different hodgepodge here. So what I'm going to do is I like to use these plastic, I think these are like you buy at the ballpark, you know, chips and queso. So I'm going to use this, and I'm going to put some of that antique matte glue in there. And then to do my top, I'm going to use the gloss. Kind of have to ration this out. You can really tell the difference in the color. This is almost a pale yellow, and obviously this is a bright white. Kind of reminds me of marshmallow color. So the first one we're going to do, I'm going to set these pots over here a little bit. The first one we're going to do in this medium-sized pot is using napkins. So if you happen to have seen my post from a couple of weeks ago, I decoupaged styrofoam balls and styrofoam Easter eggs using this same technique. So you want to separate the top piece of your napkin, let me get this apart, that has the design on it, and it just pulls apart very easily. Some napkins have 2 plies, some have 3, but this one has 2. So just, you can throw that other piece away. The next step is to just start tearing the pieces. Now, depending on the size of the object that you are decoupaging, you might want little pieces. For my project with the styrofoam balls and the plastic Easter eggs, I did really small pieces. Since this is a bigger pot, I'm going to use bigger pieces. Okay. And just start tearing. It's almost like creating a jigsaw puzzle pieces. And depending on how you want to mix the colors, you might use more of one color. It all depends on the pattern of your napkin. And right now, as far as patterned napkins, I was a little low and they weren't really available the few times I went shopping. So we're going to do these, which I really love these patterns. We've got pinks, greens, purples, blues, yellow. It's a nice combination of color. Okay. You could have kids help you do this. I'm sure they love tearing things up. Okay, so as I said, I'm going to use the antique matte because it won't show once I put this on here. So you want to start with just a little bit on your foam brush, and I'm going to start right below my rim. And what I did with the smaller pot is wherever it was an edge is what I'm going to use right below my rim. And actually, we may not even have to, let's see, we'll do it this way. And this is the process, okay? You put your hodgepodge down first, then you add your, that's a big one, then you add your napkin. I try not to use my fingers because they will get sticky. So I'll do just a little bit more. Mod Podge has been around forever. I actually remember my mom, when I was in elementary school, junior high, high school, decoupaging wood purses. And I wish I paid more attention. I was not into DIY back then. I was more into horses and boys. But you can see it's a real easy process. And you can kind of just eyeball the different placement to get the different color combinations you want. Okay, so that's it. I'm going to let that dry, and I'm just going to set all my little napkin pieces over to the side, and we'll come back to those. Okay, for our piece using our scrapbook paper, well, first thing I'm going to do is just start cutting out some more pieces, just regular scissors. I'm going to cut this away, get that out of the way. And you can make these as big or as large as you want, just depending on the size of your container, just like that. I try and kind of round any sharp places. Now, this is scrapbook paper, which is fairly light. You don't want to use cardstock. It's just too thick. And I'm just going to trim off some of those pointy places. Okay, that's enough for us to start. All right, so again, I'm just going to put some of the Mod Podge on my pot, and we'll just start here, and then I'll put another, let's see, let's do a light one down here at the bottom. So I'm just going to use some white here since my background on my paper is white. Let's see if that works. And just continue around your pot. And you can place it just however you want. This is what makes it so nice. Everybody's is going to turn out different, even if you were using the same paper, the same pot, the same napkin. And so you get the idea that you can just place your paper anywhere you want for whatever design you want. Okay? Alrighty. So now let's go on to our fabric decoupage. I'm using the smallest pot. So for this, I've got sewing scissors, and I'm just going to kind of make random shapes. Now the edges of this are pinked, and I'm just going to, since that is a corner, I really don't want a corner, I'm going to kind of round that up. And again, you can follow, if you have a specific design on your fabric, you can follow that design, or you can just do random, kind of abstract. So we'll do a couple of each pattern. Let's see. turn this so it faces and you can see better. I love all these shades of blue. They kind of just melt into each other. Again, taking some of the corners and rounding them. I found that the round kind of lays down better. Okay, we'll save that. And then we'll do this small little pattern. This is great for if you're like me, if you sew, if you have a lot of scrap material. Again, you wouldn't want to use a heavy upholstery weight or a linen. This is just good cotton, and that will make the best result when you use fabric. Now I'm going to do this just like the napkin, overlapping. Oops. So I think we'll just cut all of this up. All right, let's go back to this one. Again, you can do different sizes from small to big, just for variety. Okay, let's start with that. All right, so I'm going to start just below my rim. And we'll start with this. I'm going to try and use my white on top, and then we'll do, get some right there. As far as material, the fabric lays down pretty much like the paper does. I'm going to make a little bit more. I'm kind of going back and forth between the matte Mod Podge and the glossy. If you have to push that underneath the bottom. Okay. It's like a puzzle where you start with your big pieces and then you're going to need some smaller pieces to fill in. So I'm trying to fill in with bigger pieces right now. Oh, I love that. Okay, you can kind of see what I'm doing here. So I'm going to keep going, and I'm going to finish all these 3 different types of decorating terracotta pots and let you watch, and then we'll come back for the finish. great in. We have a little flower garden here. So I finished applying the decoupage to all my pots. And then once I was finished with that, I'll just use this one as an example. I went back and did one coat of Mod Podge to make it a sealer. Remember, Mod Podge is basically two things. It's something you use to glue things down, and then it is at the same time a sealer to give your pots or whatever you're using a seal. It's really funny when this stuff is wet, it's like glue. It's very sticky. And once it dries, it's just as smooth as can be. So once I finished all my pots, I applied, and I let that dry for a good couple of hours, and then I came back and I did a coat of sealer, and I let that dry overnight. And then you can do whatever you want with all your pots. So as you can see, for this big one, I filled it with some faux peonies. I just stuck them in the pot. There's nothing to hold them in there. I did the same thing with this one. I felt that the multicolor tulips that I had, and a couple shades of pink and yellow, just picked up beautifully the colors in the pot here. For my blue pot, I just went with all white faux peonies. You could do anything, but I just think the combination of blue and white, which is so popular, I love it. I have it in our bedroom, I have some in our living room, is just the perfect way to go here. And then for fun, and to make your pots practical, I just pulled a bunch of my multicolored marker pens. There's so many different finishes to Mod Podge. There are so many different ways to use this product. I love it, and I love the results. So I hope you'll try this. Get a pot, a terracotta pot. All you have to do first is paint it with some kind of acrylic paint or chalk paint to seal it. Then pick out whether you want to use paper napkins like I did here, scrapbook paper cut out like I did here, or fabric like we did here. So that's kind of some different ways to use Mod Podge. I hope you enjoyed it. I have a full tutorial with still pictures at blueskyathome.com, so I hope you will visit there. If you like the video, please let me know. If you have any comments, if you're an expert Mod Podger and have suggestions, I'd love to hear those too. Anyway, have a great day, and I'll see you later.